they share their lives with you and they share their history, and it's real low key. We're not going to be real intense or anything, and they're so grateful when they have the tools of yoga that really help them with some kind of issue that they might have. And so I've really, really enjoyed it, and I really love doing it. So I rarely teach just regular classes anymore. I really like my over 50s, as I call them, because they don't like to be called seniors. So just okay. I understand.
Now, are you teaching them in a group form, or are you teaching one-on-one at this point?
No, I actually have a room in my house that I turned over to yoga, and it's just a big empty room. And so I can only take about 10 people, probably max. But because people usually have several issues as they get older, I prefer to have a small class that I can really watch everyone and make sure that they're doing okay. They're better than I think some other groups in that they don't force themselves. But sometimes there's some emotional issues about, I can't get down on the floor. I can get down on the floor, but I can't get back up. And that is a very emotional issue about I'm getting old and I'm losing my mobility and all of that. So it's more of an emotional issue that I'm really looking for when I'm teaching. They're pretty good about being good with their bodies, but there are several things that go on in a class that, well, if you're trying to do some of this stuff and you're older, it may not, you can do a modification, and I give a lot of those, but you may not be able to do the full pose, and that often has emotional consequences.
Sure, absolutely. I don't on a regular basis have a particular group of people like that you're saying. So I see various amounts of people besides the population of prenatal, which is just prenatal. But I don't have a class over 50, but I have done a chair yoga, and not all chair yoga is for elderly. You can do chair yoga any time in your life. But I have found that's also a very big emotional component. It's not about the modifications of the props. You know, you could have chairs and walls and blocks and all that, but it really is that from one week to another, or even a couple weeks to another, there could be a slight injury, or there could be something they're going through, or exactly what you're saying. They can get down to the mat, but they can't get up. So then that creates that feeling of, I'm getting old, and what do I do with that? So it sounds like your yoga is always obviously healing, but it really sounds that you hold the space for your students, and it's truly this whole picture of healing, you know, the emotional, all that yoga really should be, not that whole look at me in this crazy pose on Instagram. We could go in so many directions with yoga, and I love that too. I have many friends and teachers that have a very strong practice, and that's fine too. And it is what it is. But it's nice to know that yoga is for everybody, not just some bodies, you know, meaning the body. And you obviously, with the backgrounds of Iyengar, I believe he said this, and I'll probably botch it up, but it was yoga's for everyone from 9 to 90 or something like that. He was always saying that anyone can do yoga from very young to very old. And I actually had the pleasure of going to Pune, India in 2012 and briefly met him. Now, when I say briefly met him, it was my teacher was ahead of me. She had studied with him. We went down to his library, which is in his home in India, and I got darshan, and it was an amazing experience. And being in the institute, we weren't able to take class because now you have to put your name in for over a year. It's a whole process. Being even in his presence, I did not expect to feel that emotion. My entire solar plexus and heart chakra just kind of welled up, and I had tears, beautiful tears, come down my face. And he really had a very gentle way about him. And he was always in the philosophy of that everybody could do yoga. And I just love that you're sharing that. I've listened to many of your podcasts, and I want to talk about that, because a lot of people are afraid of yoga now because they see these crazy images on social media. So share with us now, because it sounds like such your passion and interest and purpose to have the podcast and to create the episodes and have people on. So I would love for you to share that.
Because I have worked with seniors for so long, and they're just totally left out of any kind of advertising or information about yoga. And yet I know that it's very, very beneficial for them. So what I've done with the podcast, that's called Changing the Face of Yoga. It's just looking at all of the people that are working with non-traditional populations. So it may be children, or it may be women that are pregnant, or maybe seniors. I just had a person on, her name is Katrina Kopak, and she's in Boulder, Colorado, and she's working with military veterans. And she's working solely with men right at the moment. And these are men who have been through several wars, Afghanistan, Iraq, and are feeling the effects of that. And so, yes, the yoga is really helping, but there are certainly ways that she has to give the class to be most beneficial for them. Or people that have addiction. I had someone about addiction, and she was talking very much about the disconnect that addicts feel, and that they're using whatever their addictive substance is to try to make them feel whole and connected. And so that she felt that adding yoga to their therapy was another way for them to find that connection. So it's all of these people doing this incredible work to be really of service to populations that people didn't realize that yoga could do. I mean, I think those of us in yoga know that instinctively, but for everyone else, it's a very different view of what yoga is. And I'm just trying to get it out there that people can have a class for almost anyone. I actually took some training once from a lady who does brain injury and spinal injury, and she has yoga classes for them. Okay, very modified, but still, they love it. And so there's just so much more to yoga than Instagram snaps. And so I'm just trying to get that message out because I'm very passionate about how beneficial it is. People probably don't realize that unless they've had that experience that, yeah, yoga can help me even though I'm like this, whatever like this is.
What do you say to people? Because I get this so often. And what do you say to people that say, I can't do yoga, I'm not flexible?
I say, that's okay. That's what I'm here for, is to make you flexible.
Exactly. Yeah. It's so true. I say that you come to yoga with what you have and you'll become more flexible. So many people feel they need to have that before they attempt it. Meanwhile, if they attempted and again, it's the practice, and we have to explain to them it's a practice, it's not an exercise system, that you will create more flexibility and more strength. And then we obviously talk about the strength and flexibility, the duality of both. But I get that so often, or sometimes now I wonder if you get this a lot too. I can't sit still, or it's too slow, right? You get that also.
Yes, I do. I had a man in my class who has ADD, and he was great until it came to Shavasana, and then he sat and cracked his knuckles the whole time, which I really didn't appreciate. But it took a while. It really did. But after a while, he could sit for longer and longer periods of time without moving. But he never did get much past about 5 minutes. But that was 5 minutes that he'd never been able to do before. So my philosophy, and I think almost all yoga teachers' philosophy, is you meet them where they are and you try to take them on a little journey. And hopefully they like that journey and they will continue on it. I had someone on my podcast who does private yoga, one-on-ones. You said that you do some one-on-one yoga. And she said her purpose is to get everyone to put together their own practice at home every day. That is what they need to do. And I think that's where we have to be, is people are in lots of different places, and we need to start there and see what part of yoga would be helpful to bring them on a journey.
That's absolutely so true. As we're talking, and I know I have some things that have shaped my yoga practice. Has there been anything in your personal yoga practice that you have learned either through a situation or through an injury where you were able to have a different viewpoint on it?
I was like you. I was very, very flexible. And so I could take to yoga and do everything pretty easily. However, with age, I was very, very frustrated for about a year when I started realizing that my hips weren't going to be as flexible as they had. For some reason, I thought yoga would stop aging. I do understand that that's very unrealistic, but I had hopes. So it took me about a year to really understand that I was not going to be able to do what I did, and that if I wanted to continue with yoga, then I had to find things I could do, because I do feel that you should keep up the movement, the asanas, to help with mobility and independence, but that I was going to have to go deeper into the breathing and the meditation. And that's kind of where I am now. I do have a movement part of my practice, and it's mostly therapeutic. I really don't at this point have any arthritis, but I want to keep the joints nice and juicy, and I want to keep the muscles as strong as I can. But I am really working more on really working my way through the steps of meditation. Haven't got to samadhi yet, but I am trying to do that, because I have to be realistic. Yes, I do see the things on Facebook about the 98-year-old yoga teacher, which I'm very impressed with. I really am. But I'm not sure I'm going to be one of those. So.
Yes. Matter of fact, my sister spent a weekend with her not far from here. And she said she was just really very amazing and inspiring, and also just a beautiful light. And we just really had a beautiful, beautiful light. But I agree. I recently had an injury just sort of out of the blue, not even a yoga related injury, but I hurt my mid back, and it really threw me off kilter. I went through the process of trying to take care of myself, and I still sort of teaching and demonstrate all that much. I have mostly not too many beginners, so they sort of know the classes. But it got so bad that I was out for the count. Everybody had to sub my classes, and it really was a wake-up call that, one, I need to take better care of myself, and two, things happen. And so now I've been modifying. Today was the first day back to a true 90-minute practice. I have been practicing slowly modification, but every time there's been either an adjustment in my practice, perhaps an injury or a life change, it was never fun, but it has always been a learning curve to keep practicing, keep getting on the mat, and just, you may see it differently, but it is for life. It is a practice that we want to do. It sounds like both of us want to do it for as long as we possibly can. However, that maybe less asana, perhaps more another limb, the 8 limbs, but it's absolutely a learning journey. And I always think we have the ability, when things happen to us, then we can just help facilitate and be that teacher for our students. So I think that's just wonderful that you're able to share what you do. And also, obviously, the podcast, which is just fantastic. I know you're getting fantastic reviews, so congratulations on that. Where can people find you and connect with you? Because I would love for people to be able to do that.
You can go on iTunes and just search for Changing the Face of Yoga, because it's all up there. I also have a website, and the podcast and my blogs are on there, and that's www.yogalightness.com.au. And then I have Yoga Lightness Oz, in OZ at the end, Facebook page. And I put up, whenever we put up a new podcast like we did yesterday, I always put it on Facebook and let people know about it. So yeah, any of those will get to me, and we'd love to have everybody listen to the podcast just to know the really hundreds of things that people do with yoga that's so helpful for lots of different people. So that's the passion there right now, is just to get everybody to understand how great yoga is.
I love it. And also I know that I believe